Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Quitcast. My name is Becca Syme, and we've been doing a couple of mindset episodes on the Quitcast recently, and today is no exception. We are going to talk about finding joy in writing, and specifically, I want to discuss the process by which we find joy in writing, especially if we have lost it. And this is assuming because not everyone is a find joy in writing person, but this episode is assuming that it's something you want to do, not something you think you should do. Anytime it's a should, again, we question the premise. But if you want to find the joy in writing again, here's my little argument for why to do it and how to go about it. And it's going to be counterintuitive a little bit for some of us because what we want to do is sort of force ourselves to be happy about the books that we're writing. And a lot of us do this fake it till you make it thing where we're like, I'm just going to force myself to sit down and then I have to start liking it again. Right, Becca? Like, isn't that how it works? And unfortunately, Becca has to say that's not really how this process works. And if you've done any of our burnout stuff before, you've seen any of the Energy Pennies videos in the past, you know that when you're being drained of your energy at a disproportionate level to how much you are restoring it, there's only so much time you can go about life until burnout happens, like until everything sort of comes crashing down on you. So the downside about this, and I want to be like as conscious as I can of like finding joy in writing isn't just a burnout thing, because the burnout state of being, right, where am actually burned out on like life or on work or whatever, is something that can cyclically happen to us when we either are have a disproportionate energy output to input ratio, when we the energy penny exchange, right, is what we call it, or when we are not getting the results that we want, which essentially causes that to happen, or when certain strengths cause things that, like we talked in the Why Is This So Hard video about strengths that need new and different information all the time, new and different experiences, strengths that get bored quickly, strengths that need learning curves, that need challenge, things like that. Like you won't have an indefinite capacity to do the same thing forever. Almost no one has the ability to do that. There are some who do, but almost no one has the ability to do that. So if you are not that person, then we end up in either a all systems burnout, right? Or potentially just limited to a creative burnout, which is possible. Or you may just be burned out on writing. So you may have no issues in any other creative outlet. You may have no emotional, like, stasis or anything like that. But when it comes to the actual writing of the books, which again, I'm just going to reference if you are watching this, but you didn't watch Why Is This So Hard? I'm going to link to that in the show notes and I want you to watch that. But assuming that there is some level of I can't produce the same amount of joy that I used to in the writing, or I am actually burned out, which again would do the same thing. Here's what I suggest. There's a couple of questions that I have at the beginning because anytime we have alignment work going on, the first thing I need to know is why. Where is this coming from? So we want to diagnose, that's kind of step one, a little bit. We want to diagnose exactly where this is coming from. And I have several different videos in the past. If you sort of sort through all of our burnout videos and all of our energy management videos and the energy pennies, you will find all of this information about the energy penny exchange, the different types of energy, etc. We are also going to do a workshop at the upcoming virtual summit, the BFA virtual summit, which there should be a link in the show notes for that, about specifically about the alignment and why burnout happens, creatively and energetically, finding joy in writing, for different domains of strength. And so we're going to have a workshop for that if you want to come to it. More information in the show notes. But essentially, the diagnostics, a short version of how to run that diagnostics, is you need to know what it is that's causing it, because why it's happening is the fix for how to solve it. So why is the answer to how, essentially. If you don't know why it's happening, you're just going to be trying things and throwing spaghetti at the wall until you figure it out. But if you know why, you know how. So here are a couple of potential options. First of all, the stakes are too high. If the stakes of whatever you're doing are high, then it's going to be difficult to produce joy in it. So, where I get a lot of pushback on this is people say things like, but I love high stakes things. And I say, right, you love things that are high stakes for other people. And some of that is just we're all wired differently, but there are actually kind of semi problematic reasons that that can happen as well. But typically, when people are like attracted to things that are high stakes for other people, they're they're finding joy in they're not as high stakes. And that's why it's fun because it's sort of a game to them, right? But when the time comes to be emotionally vulnerable, suddenly it's not so easy for you to feel your feelings, right, Kevin? And we pick on Kevin a lot. I just have to say, I'm sure all of you whose names are actually Kevin out there are sick of me picking on you. So feel your feelings, George, then fine, right? Kevin is just the name that we always use, but feel your feelings, George. The high so it's to vulnerability is too high stakes. Like taking a chance is too high stakes. So when the stakes go up, the joy goes down by nature. So when the stakes are too high, you are not going to feel joy about whatever you're doing. We need to lower the stakes in order for that to happen. That often means I may need to get a second job. I may need to reduce the frequency of my ads. I may need to save more money. I may need to cancel travel. I may need to do things that are going to save me money because the danger of me not being able to make whatever bills I have to pay is causing the stakes to go up and it's causing my body to react as though it's dangerous for me to write. I'm scared because what happens if it doesn't work, right? Like those kinds of questions. So if that is the reason that it's happening, then the only way to solve that problem is to actually lower the stakes, which means you have to take away whatever it is that you're afraid of having happen. So if you are, yeah, I'm going to suggest that you go to Claire Taylor's Enneagram work for additional fear stuff. If you haven't seen that before, liberatedwriter.com, I think is what it is. But when you have high levels of fear, the stakes are too high. That's not going to be fun anymore, right? So that's one option. Another option is the world is too heavy. It's too difficult for me to handle all of these things. I am too connected. There's too much going on, right? And it's very hard to find joy when everything that's happening feels like it's sucking up all of my capacity to have joy. And I always want to remind people that it is so important for us in those moments to have regular joy practices because when the big feelings are happening or the big fear is happening or we're preparing for things or whatever it is that's going on in the outside world for us, if we don't try to combat that feeling with also security and also joy and also peace, we are not going to survive any of the things that we need resilience in order to survive, right? So it's really important to remember that the joy moments still happen even when the stakes are high in like a larger sense. You're still going to lower the stakes for a minute and laugh or lower the stakes for a minute and get married, lower the stakes for a minute, have a baby, like whatever it is that, maybe some of you are getting divorced and you're happy about that, right? Like that's making your joy spike. And so anything that gives you those joy moments, that is what we want you to do. We want you to create joy in the middle of that of the high stakes situations that exist because the stakes are too high for me as an individual is one thing. The stakes are too high for me in the context of the systems that I'm in is a different thing. So the more indirect the fear is, which all large system, large world fear is indirect fear. There is not an immediate lion in my house right now, but there is a threat of a lion that might potentially be here, right? So anytime the high stakes are coming from that level, that real high level that's indirect, we have got to create as much joy as we possibly can. And the joy pennies exercises that we did for the energy management book, I think it's called. I'll see if I can find a link and put it in the show notes. That's going to to be really paramount for us, I think, because we can't just be constantly bombarded by and swimming in the fear that we have about things that are so indirect systemically. We need to be able to create more peace, create more joy in our lives so that we can battle against that fear and then be present to do the things that we really need to do. So many of us think we need to be present to every single thing that's happening in the entire broad world. And the reality is, we need to be so much less present to things that are indirect until they are direct. And then, as soon as they are direct, we need to be really conscious of them and we need to do what we can. And otherwise, we need to be generally prepared. And this is hard and painful for some of us. And I'm not saying check out, I'm not saying don't pay attention. I'm saying don't be vigilant. Don't be vigilant. It is not necessary unless we are in an extremely like tight situation. We want to be as aware as is safe to be and still maintain the trajectory because we're going to be in all of this together for a long time. So again, that's the reason that vigilance is not that I'm not encouraging people to be vigilant right now about every single thing because we have a long trajectory, a long road here that we're all in, whatever's happening economically with us, right? We have to just be, especially the combination of the world insecurity and then the industry insecurity at the same time. Like the industry insecurity was already happening, so we have got to fight against that feeling that we need to be constantly checking, well, like what happened, what happened, what happened. It's like the news is meant to be checked and not watched. We need to create more space away from that so that we can have a functional trajectory of life in addition to the consciousness, right? We do want to be conscious. So, okay. So create more joy. That's the second answer to the second problem. And then the third potential one, and these are just the three biggest ones. There are many others, and many of them will overlap with the why is this so hard reasons. So if you can go to that and watch that, if these three don't resonate, you'll probably find something in there that does. But the third is I have been doing this for too long to still be as excited about it as I was in the beginning. And when I have run out of steam or enthusiasm for it because it is not new anymore, and now I need a new source of motivation in the middle of that long-term career, the motivation can't come from joy anymore. The motivation has to come from something else. And then the joy we take in other things, or we find new ways to create joy in the writing by doing something like switching to a new genre or switching to a new pen name or trying something new or learning something new, whatever it is that's going to bring us that joy in the moment of the new and different, right? Because the longer we've been in something, most of us are not wired to do well in terms of enthusiasm unless we have been creating it for ourselves. And I think part of the downside, and this is just like, I really think that this is unfortunate because part of the downside of where we have been in the industry is that a lot of us have not been intentionally cultivating practices of joy production because it was so easy for us to coast on the new and different energy that we got at the beginning or the possibility of what might happen if we take off. And the longer we stay in this and don't take off, the harder it is to find joy in the process. That isn't to say there's no joy in the process. It's to say the joy is not going to be the same. And then I'm going to give a fourth reason, even though I wasn't going to, and it's not in my notes, so who knows how long this is going to take. But the fourth reason is that you are too addicted to dopamine to know the difference anymore. And this is actually really frustrating for me because I recognize that we're communicating currently on a digital device. Most of you are probably on your phones. Many of you came here from Facebook or TikTok or YouTube. And many of you are hearing this because you have been on a social media platform. And so I recognize how hypocritical it is of me to say this. And also, if I'm honest about what would be the best for most of us, it is for us to put our phone in a freaking box all day long because we are so addicted. Like I want, I can, I, if this wasn't a non-explicit channel, I would be swearing my head off right now because I get so frustrated with people when they say, I want this. And I say, great, then don't open your phone first thing. And they're like, nope, can't do that. That's not a possibility. And I'm like, okay, but you're addicted to the phone. How about we just, nope, can't do. And I'm like, okay, like reasonable. You get to make your own decisions. And also, this is one of the reasons that I made the will versus want video, right? It's like, okay, I wish, or the wish versus want video, I guess. I wish that I was more productive, but I don't wish it enough to head into want territory, to want to put my phone down. I wish I was more productive, but I don't want it enough to do the thing that I have to do, right? Which again, I said this in the video, it's not a bad thing to just not want it badly enough to put the phone down, because some of us do actually need to go ahead and let the phone do what it's going to do. But I do get frustrated as a coach who consistently says, like, look, the studies have documented this to the high heavens at this point, and the fact that we are all so dopamine addicted, we don't understand that what it means to be a dopamine addict is that you can't get regular dopamine anymore. So you're so used to getting fast dopamine from scrolling and from other things, right? It's not just, there are other things that cause immediate dopamine hits, like they call them fast dopamine activities versus slow dopamine activities. When you have fast dopamine activities and you do them too much, you lose your sensitization to just the regular old experience of having dopamine hits. And so, so many of us are so addicted to our phones and so addicted to work and so addicted to our computers and so addicted to whatever response we're getting from whatever thing that we are not able to function. We are frustrated and tired. We are exhausted, like emotionally and physically exhausted, but we won't look at the common denominator for every single thing that is wrong with us, which is, and I know people are going to push back on this and be like, phones aren't evil, Becca, they blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I cannot say enough that Mark Zuckerberg does not allow his children to have phones. Like the people who create these addictive technologies and addictive platforms know that their own kids shouldn't be doing it. And yet everyone else is like, no, this is great for me. And again, I'm going to stop because I know some of you will just check out for me talking about this because I talk about it so often. But there's a reason I talk about it so often. And it's because every time I encourage someone to do this, they always come back to me and say, I feel better, I sleep better, I look better, right? Like my writing is better every time. And we do these detoxes and people feel and look and write and experience life better. And yet we are all still on it. So I am going to encourage you to do what you can do to become less dependent on the phone wherever possible, including, and this is probably going to be big for some of us, including not reaching for your phone first thing in the morning and seeing how long in the day you can get through before you actually reach for it again. Okay. I promise that's the last time I'm going to talk about that. We need to move on from that sort of kind of step one. There are other mini steps before that, but which we'll talk about more in the workshop. But you don't need all of that information in order to take action on this. That's why I'm doing the Quitcast episode separate, because I'm trying to condense some things to say, like, there are some easy ways to get back to this practice, but you have to make it a practice, right? So that initial phase of identification of what's going wrong, the diagnostics, and then the next phase after that is replacement joy. So whether or not I can actually do something to recover the joy in writing right now has a lot to do with what the diagnostics are, because most of those diagnostics don't allow us to recover joy quickly, right? The only one that really does is if you are not finding joy in your current genre pen name because you're bored and you switch into something else. That will happen quickly, right? Like you'll be excited very quickly. But most of those reasons require an awful lot of work before you can get back into a place where you're actively producing joy consistently again in the writing. So, if we assume that you still have to fix that systemic stuff anyway, like you still have to do the work to disconnect if you need to, or, whatever it is in those action steps that I was outlining, do any of those things, we still want to do that work. But we also want to do step two, which is replacement joy. So you need to find something other than the writing that you are actively getting joy out of. And I mean actively. I don't just mean, yeah, I like this. I mean, if those of you who remember Nat Connors, who was on here interviewing for the market awareness, who we spent like 25 minutes before the interview talking about tango. I've never seen anyone who is more excited about tango than Nat Connors. And the cool thing about experiencing that, like when you get to watch somebody be really, really excited about something, you actually get this reminder a little bit of like, oh, this is what joy looks like. This is what it feels like to be so excited about something and so engrossed in something that it almost takes me. And I can't remember how many years he's been doing it, but 20 some years, and still feels just so excited about it. And he's done it for profession as well. It's not like, oh, you were always just an amateur at it, right? Like he taught tango and is still so excited about it because there is this practice in him of continuing to intentionally do the joyful things that he loves about that experience all the time, right? So he's constantly increasing his capacity to feel joy about it. Doesn't mean he's not going to be ever frustrated with anything. This would be the same thing with all of us, right? Like I have at many, many, many points in my life been professionally paid to do music. And I've never lost my sense of fun. Like I could go sit down and play the piano right now for 6 hours and be completely lost, right? Like just be excited about it. In fact, that sounds really great, actually. Maybe I just need to go do that. Because it's been rough lately for me. Like I have had a really difficult last month. And some of you know what's going on there, and some of you don't. Just suffice it to say, I'm okay, for the most part. And also, it has legitimately been like life-changingly difficult for me. And also, the joy that I find in my relationships, the joy that I find in being outside in the sun today, which was so great. The joy that I find in playing the piano, which is, again, it was reminding me I need to go do that more. I haven't been doing that enough. But those kinds of joy, like the types of things that will help me to recover my joy pennies, which when I am out of them, they are gone, right? That's the energy pennies concept, which there are more videos about that on our channel if you want to watch them. But when I don't have any more joy pennies and I need to make them, I have to do something that produces as much as I can. And that needs to not be something that's related to writing, actually. Like somebody tagged me on Threads when I put a post up about this, and they were showing their ceramics that they were making, and they were beautiful. And I was like, yes, I can understand that. My assistant is really big into plants. Every time she goes to any store ever, and I mean literally any store that has plants, she's always texting me about looking at plants, which just makes me laugh. I have all of my plants in my house because of her, right? Because she's so excited about them. And it was infectious enthusiasm. And I love all of my plants. And I probably have more oxygen in my house than I used to, which is great. But that level of joy and enthusiasm, and of course, I want to excerpt, just take a pause here to say some of us are in clinical depression, and I'm not saying that making joy pennies is going to cure clinical depression. I am saying that if you are lacking joy, you need to feel it, right? And I recommended the book Joyful before, in particular because she has a designation system for the different things that create joy, like the different types of joy. I think it's fantastic. I have used a lot of that in my life. And those of you who can look even just in this room, right? Like I have the color saturation, I have circles, which is it's so funny to me that like bubbles and circles are joyful, like are a type of joy, but they are. And I have green plants in here. And I have but I have intentionally taken those 9 different designations of joy, like the types that you can experience, and tried to have more of them in my life because I know that I need that for food for my security, right? Because again, in the positive emotion cycles, the goal of entering the happiness loop is to get to security. It's not to feel happiness. Happiness is fleeting. Happiness is a cookie and a smile and an orgasm. Happiness is not lasting. By nature, it's supposed to lead us to other feelings. So it leads us to gratitude. It leads us to hope. It leads us to connection. It leads us to security. Whatever it is that it's leading us to, that's the goal. We don't sit in happiness and try to continue to produce happiness. And in fact, many of you are trying so hard to produce happiness in your writing that it's actually making you hate it because you're putting so much pressure. Like nothing can ever go wrong, and like you have to be happy all the time. And that kind of expectation leads us into absolute despair, and it ruins things. It ruins jobs, it ruins marriages, it ruins lives because there's this expectation that I have to be happy at all times. And if I'm not happy or you're making me unhappy, then you're going to pay because I deserve to be happy all the time. And people don't understand. We're supposed to feel the whole range of emotions. It's supposed to be a full bodied, embodied experience to be a human. So yeah, you want to be joyful in your writing. Like I'm writing a cozy fantasy book right now that was the fun project, right? It was sort of like the book of my heart, and I got stuck in it, and it was not fun. And I am so grateful for the help getting out of that because it was way harder than it should have been to get out of that, and it was so much fun to get unstuck in that. Because of course, like my way of getting unstuck is talking to my people, and that is like life for me. I get life out of that, and then in addition to that, I think I get to play a little bit in that world in a way that I haven't, which again, I think that's part of why I suggest for people who are in that segment where you are not having fun anymore because you've been doing this for too long or you haven't ever changed anything. It's been amazing how much the play of that new genre has helped me a lot. And I have no idea if I'm going to release the book. Like I probably will. I have a cover for it. I love the cover, by the way. It's incredible. But like I have a cover for it. I have a pen name. I have all these things. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I'm capable of doing it. I ran a 6-figure writing career. So like, of course, there's a possibility that I could release it. But I don't know. Like I don't want to lose this feeling, right, of being so excited to wake up in the morning and work on that book again. And I haven't felt this way about a book since like very early in my career. And many of you know my career has had the like ups and downs, right? Like especially my fiction career has not been all rise. And that's like a How I Met Your Mother joke, right? But it has absolutely been incredible and worthwhile. And I am not making anywhere near, like nowhere, not even remotely close to any money that would be anything right now on fiction, and I'm okay with that because I know it can always come back. And I think that's the other piece of this resilience mindset about finding the joy in writing again is just because I'm not feeling it right now doesn't mean I'm never going to feel it again. And just because I may have to take a part-time job or a full-time job to pay my bills doesn't mean I can't ever come back and be a full-time writer again. There's always possibility in the future. Now that the gold rush is over, and we have an open capacity, which happened before the gold rush. We have an open capacity to be publishing. Nobody gets to tell me that I have to stop. So I can just keep going and I can keep reinventing myself. I can have a new pen name if I want to, etc. Thank you to the publishing gods for that. I appreciate that. But it means that I get to decide. So I get to be the one who decides whether my career is over or not. And I say no. I say, I don't care if I'm not making money anymore. Like I can always make more money publishing. It's fine. And I don't mean like, I do not mean that it's just easy to do. I mean, if I decide to put my mind to it and go through the learning curve and figure it out, learn whatever I have to learn, be whatever I have to, right? Like if I decide that I'm going to do that, it's going to be possible, not because it's magic, not because it's magic thinking, but because I will keep going until I make it happen. And it might, who knows how many years that would take. I have no idea, but I would just keep going until I made it happen, even having other jobs, even having whatever. And I feel like this is a not discussed enough mindset that we need to internalize a little bit in the author industry because so many of us are watching our gold rush dreams be shattered. And that's part of what's causing us not to feel as much joy anymore is this idea that like, well, now I've passed my time. But you are not a steak, Kevin. You don't rot. You don't pass your expiration date as a writer. You don't have an expiration date until you die. You do not pass your prime, your expert, whatever. Like you, you have not lost your shot. No one has lost their shot. There still are plenty of shots to be had. There still is always going to be some openness in the market, even in saturated markets. And I don't say that to convince anyone not to quit if you really want to quit. I say that to say if you don't want to quit, but you absolutely have to change something, get the job, pull back on spending the money, keep writing, try to internalize that you can find joy in other things. And then again, this is the step two joy replacement, right? Find joy in other things until you can find it in the writing again. And then the last step, which we talked about just a little bit previously, but I want to really hit this hard. You have got to practice feeling a full range of emotion around the process of writing. We cannot limit ourselves to just the expectation of happiness. We have to feel all the emotions, right? So, the positive emotion cycle, we did a video on it. The goal of emotions is to feel all the way through the emotion cycle. If you get to whatever the emotion is at the end, because some of you feel them very quickly and you are done, then you felt it. You're fine. You don't have to manufacture it, right? So if you can feel happiness and get all the way to security very quickly, like I love these glasses covers, by the way, let me just show you, are Starry Night, which if you're a Doctor Who fan at all, Starry Night will always and forever will remind me of Doctor Who, right? So I have such positive memories of Doctor Who from college and from like my young adulthood, right, from grad school and things like that. So I have all these happiness memories of Doctor Who, these connectedness memories, really, right? And so when I wear these glasses covers and I see that in my vision, right? I'm like, oh, a starry night. And then I have that moment of happiness. If I very quickly get to the feeling of like, oh, all is well with the world, even just for a second, right? All is well with the world. If you've ever been like a parent, or if you've ever been like some children feel this way about their parents or grandparents, if you've ever been in love, if you've ever experienced a high like what I'm about to describe, you'll understand what I mean. You can be in the worst moment in the world. And, like, let's say, as a parent, look at your child and be so overwhelmed with the security of how perfect this world is in this moment that even the worst thing that could possibly happen to you pales in comparison to the feeling of that security. Or again, some of us feel that way about our parents or grandparents. If we've been in love, we might feel that way, right? Where everything melts away in the world and that person is the security for the moment. And then they may not be the security 10 minutes later, which is fine. But in that moment, you feel that. That's the goal. We want to practice feeling that full range of emotion. Positive emotion cycle, which I'll link to, happiness, gratitude, hopefulness, and security. So I feel happy that, etc. The negative emotion cycle, which again, you can feel all of the negative emotions without spiraling as long as you're not below the line emotionally. But the negative emotion cycle starts in anger and ends in guilt responsibility, right? Which is, what is my part in this situation? So if I'm feeling a full range of emotions, some of us are feeling some anger right now about publishing or about just the world at large. Some of us are feeling sadness, which is the second emotion about publishing or the world at large. Some of us are feeling fear. The problem is when we feel fear and we get stuck there, we continue to just cycle through anger, sad, fear, anger, sad, fear, anger, sad, fear. We don't fully feel the fear and get all the way to responsibility, which is what we want to do. I want you to feel, what is my part in this? Because once I know what my part is, then I either do something about it, right? If I need to change, repair, whatever, or because this is also important, do something about it, or release the expectation that's causing me to be so angry. So that looks like repeating words to myself and things like, not all good books sell well. I have to repeat that to myself all the time when I look at certain books that I have. I'm like, I think that might be the best book that I've written. Not all good books sell well, is the reality. Loki is in charge. That's the reality. And honestly, Loki's in charge is one of the deprogramming, like expectation deprogramming statements that I say over and over again to people. Because if we're expecting that things are going to look a certain way, like, well, if I write a good book, it should sell. And if it doesn't sell, that means either there's something wrong with the market or I didn't write a good book. And meanwhile, Becca says Loki's in charge, and that means you can write a great book and it cannot sell. You can write a good book, it could be not packaged well and it's not going to sell. You could write a book with great packaging that for some reason doesn't sell because Loki's in charge. Again, that for me is, I'm going to not hold on to the expectation that continues to make me go from anger to sad to fear to anger to sad to fear to fear to fear to fear to fear. If it's not bopping me over into, what can I do about this? What is my part? If you've ever done a Johari window before, if you don't understand what is yours to control and what is not, what you can change and what you can't, you need to get a real handle on what is yours. Because if you continue to spiral about things that are not yours to solve, you're never going to be able to finish that loop. And we always want to get to, what is my part? And I talked about this in a couple of Patreon calls, which, by the way, if you are not on our Patreon, we have the opportunity to write with other writers in the office on our Patreon. We do small group coaching where you can ask coaches questions for 10 minutes and then sit through the group coaching if you want to as well with 5 or 6 other people. We have individual coaching, and then we have these big group topic calls. And we have topical calls on the burnout stuff, which Nikki runs, on being an intuitive writer, which Susan runs, on marketing, which Crystal runs. And then I do one every month on some kind of strengths development or personality development of some kind, archetypes sometimes, but usually it's strengths. We're in the middle of doing some domain work right now in basements, but in the essentially on the Patreon on that topical level, we do all of this work to try to make the coaches accessible to you so that you can have some kind of support if you need it. And I think not enough people take advantage of that. We sit and ruminate and be frustrated, and we don't find ways to get to, like, what can I change about this? And a lot of that is because we are disconnected, we are lonely, we are extremely frustrated and exhausted, and we're just having a hard time producing joy. So I'm going to encourage you to do a couple of different things here at the very end. Obviously, because I think it's important as we end to remind ourselves of the action points, right? Obviously, I'm going to say the joy replacement stuff. If any of you are really not finding joy in writing right now, I need you to find something else that you can replace that joy with, so that in the meantime, you are getting joy pennies on some level, and hopefully that will fuel whatever it is that you need to do. Find a joy practice if you can. This is one of the reasons, by the way, that I have these pair eyewear toppers right next to me, is that sometimes I'll just throw them on so that I can have this mini happy moment and then go into the positive emotion cycle, right? So for me, I think that's a practice that I have. I have a practice now of watering my garden because I'm trying to grow a little mini garden. And so I'm going every single day with a spray bottle and watering all these different things. And I water my little orchid. And like, I have all of these like gardening practices that I never had before. And the consistency, which consistency is a trigger word for some of us. So let's say rhythm, because I don't do it every day either, but I try to do it every day. But the rhythm of it for me is that solace, I guess, right? And like I am doing what I can do to produce benefit for myself. So some kind of joy replacement if you are able to do that. I want you to connect with other people about this. Some of you are going to connect in the comments on the YouTube. Some of you are going to connect with me on social media. You might connect with me I am reasonably often on Instagram, most often probably on Threads and Facebook, occasionally on TikTok. I'll probably be on TikTok more. And then also, we're going to start doing some content about growth engines and vertical platforms. We're going to do some content on finding joy in writing. We're going to do some archetypes content. We have a lot of stuff planned. We have a Kickstarter plan for the 7 deadly skills of author platform building and of writing to market. And I'm hopeful that we're going to get that up and done next month. So you can follow the plan on Kickstarter and see if you're around for the launch. We're going to do some really exciting early bird stuff. And then, of course, we have our digital conference where we are going to do a fair amount of learning, either about like domains, taking joy by domain. We're also going to do some platform building by domain stuff. And then we have these growth engines for vertical platforms that we're going to talk about. So there's a lot of stuff in that. And if you are the kind of person who gets excited about input and learner stuff, like we also have an option that is a cheaper option if you don't want to do the whole conference. So we have because we're going to do a 5 day conference because I just decided I miss those days of just doing content delivery all day long. So we're going to do a 5 day conference and we're going to allow people to just sign up for only this one small package where you sort of get like one of each of the buffet and then the main workshops that everybody can attend. And then you get one genre discussion roundtable in addition to that. So I'm really hopeful that you'll come to the BeccaCon, they call it, which is so funny. And if you are not interested or can't pay money, go back through our videos. We do a ton of free content. We have a free course library that's got several classes in it. We're going to release another couple of them throughout the rest of this year. We have a lot of videos that have a lot of views, and you can just go through and search for the big ones. You could watch the QTP episodes. We have a playlist just for that. You could watch the burnout episode. There's so much that you could do because I know a lot of you, it helps you to stay regulated when you can listen to more of my content. So think about going back through some of the videos that you've already seen also and just give yourself that boost and create some joy pennies for yourself. But please also, because this was my last action point, I need you to connect with someone about this. If you are struggling with not being able to find joy in writing, I need you to connect with someone else. You can go on my Threads, Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok where I did posts about it. You could go on my Patreon where I did a post about it. You could comment on the YouTube version of this video or audio. We have some free posts on the Patreon that you can comment on. Go somewhere and tell someone how you are feeling. Go to a coach and tell someone how you are feeling. Process this with them. Find an action point that works for you and execute on it. We also do free live public coaching at the beginning of each month on our Crowdcast. There should be a link to that in the show notes as well. But I hope that you will do something intentional that will bring you some joy because we need to fix this problem. And that's going to take us doing a joy practice of some kind. And then my last encouragement, I lied. I'm going to do one more encouragement. My last encouragement is for you to do a positive emotion cycle as often as possible. So I'm going to do one right now just so you can see what it looks like. Okay. Wait, let me find a different glasses pair. Okay. I feel happy that I found a pair I wear. I feel happy that colors are so beautiful. I feel happy that it's spring right now. I feel happy that it's so beautiful outside. Oh, I feel hopeful, which means I already felt the gratitude. I feel hopeful that there are going to be moments for all of us in the future where we feel this level of security again. I feel hopeful for us that we will feel joy about our writing again because I know that this is the way to do it. The constant reminders that there are good things that happen and the reminders to feel your full ranges of emotions. I feel so hopeful. Oh, I feel secure. I feel secure that if you do that work, it will work. I feel secure that if you work the plan, again, like we talked about last time, if you trust the process works because it is actually a relevant process. It is an aligned process. The emotion cycles are an aligned process. The strengths or the Enneagram or whatever are an aligned process. So when you do the work, it works. So let's do the work. Let's do regular joy practices. Now you do a positive emotion cycle. Let me know how it went. I love you guys. This is a great community. I'm excited to be a part of it. And I'm looking forward to making more content about this in the future. But next week, I think we're starting growth engines. So that'll be fun for us learner inputs. And I will see you guys next time on the Quitcast. Bye, everybody.